I'd like to call Isle of Palm City Council to order. Today is Tuesday, September 25th, 2018. I'd like to welcome everybody for coming and being involved in our City Council meeting. I'd also like to acknowledge that both the press and the public were duly notified of this meeting. The first order is to please join me as I pray, and to be followed by our Pledge of Allegiance and followed by our roll call. God of all, we ask for your blessing upon this meeting and on people of all goodwill everywhere. May we prove ourselves worthy citizens and leaders devoted to making the best decisions that affect our community for not only now, but for generations to come. Thank you for the strength you instilled upon us during this recent weather challenges, and for those who gave tirelessly to protect our citizens and community. While we were spared any damages, we ask that you help guide us in helping others not so fortunate. Give us strength sufficient for the day. May we be as big as our problems and remain bigger than our responsibilities. Help us live up to our capabilities, and thank you for this slice of heaven we call home. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, man.
Councilmember Bell.
Here.
Councilmember Buchanan.
Here.
Councilmember Ferenz.
Here.
Councilmember Kinghorn.
Hearing, hearing.
Councilmember Lloyd. Hope he's just in traffic. Councilmember Wright. Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Ward.
Here.
Mayor Carroll.
Here.
Attorney Copeland. Here. And Interim Administrator Fregoso.
Here.
Thank you very much. Reading of the journal of the previous meeting, regular meeting of August 28, 2018. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussions, changes? Here.
Yes.
Okay.
I have one under the Personnel Committee. It was identified that there was only one vacancy when we have two others, the administrator position and Public Works, Deputy of Public Works.
Thank you. Did you get that? For
We haven't
We
been.
do not have a vacancy in City Hall. The City Administrator Emerita is still an employee with the city through October 8th.
But we have a search for that position.
Correct, but it's not considered vacant until we have, she's no longer in the city.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
anything else? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Citizens' comments. Do we have any citizens' comments? Yes, sir.
Good evening to all. I'm Rusty Streetman from 4004 Palm Boulevard. And what I wanted to briefly address tonight was item number 2 on the agenda tonight under Ways and Means Committee. And that's the consideration of rejecting the Morgan Creek Grill proposed lease extension and consideration of RFP for lease of Marina Restaurant. I did speak in front of the Ways and Means Committee last week, and I'm pretty much going to make the same points tonight that I made last week. As one of the citizens of the Isle of Palms that voted overwhelmingly last year against a marina referendum, I'm speaking out against an automatic extension of the lease and as it was proposed. By our vote as citizens, we mandated change and not business as usual from the new council and mayor. I'm certainly not speaking out against MCG specifically. I do patronize them, and I'm in favor of a restaurant continuing to occupy that space going forward. That being said, I believe the city should put this lease out to bid, RFP, because I believe that's appropriate, not only for the city of Isle of Palms, but under the South Carolina state procurement law. I also feel that as a city, we're not getting fair market value for the property we own as citizens of this island. In reading the proposed lease, it appears if I can get to it, it appears the lease terms that are being proposed could be extended as long as 33 years if you count all the extensions. There's also a proposal in that lease to eliminate additional rent payments. During the referendum, the city fact sheet said that we get around $135,000 per year in rent, which was the base rent plus additional rent. This proposal, as I read it, would result in the city getting $95,000 in rent until 2023, and then $120,000 a year thereafter until 2053. Also, the lease is tied to the CPI, and that would probably raise the rent in the neighborhood of 2 to 3%. So therefore, as a citizen of the Isle of Palms, I'm in favor of the lease going out to bid in order to determine fair market value. If we enter into this lease as proposed, it simply just doesn't cover the cost for the city to carry the property. Thank you.
Any other comments? Yes, sir.
For y'all that don't know me, my name is Harold Timmerman. I live at 2908 Waterway Boulevard where the flagpole's at. Been on the island 52 years. I don't have all this information this man has, but I'm here to support Morgan Creek Grill. I have been there since there was nothing. I've been there at the barbecue shack. I've been there with Henry J. I've been there, and the last one before Jay Clark come along with Morgan Creek Grill was a total loser. I think Morgan Creek Grill is something we could be proud of. Everybody can't go to Front Beach with old people like me maybe and children and everything. And over the years I've seen all the improvements that Jay and his crew have made on the building, the grounds, and everything. The city didn't pay for it. They have done an outstanding job, and I think that this lease should be extended. Now, I don't have all these funny facts and everything this guy has, but I'll tell you one thing. The reason I know this is because, if you remember Frank O'Brien, he's dead now, he was my good friend. Frank and I come up with the idea that this is a pretty nice place. We ought to start coming here regular. Well, we've been to Morgan Creek every Tuesday for 8 years, and we started our 9th year the second Tuesday of July. I left 19 people, island friends, to come up here to speak. And it was pouring down rain. Maybe some of the others would have come, but it's pouring down rain in Morgan Creek. It's not raining up here. But I think Morgan Creek is something good for the island. I mean, it's come a long way. It might not be perfect, but it's come a long way from what we had before, which was not so perfect. And I would like to see, I mean, the lease extended and Jay and his crew keep going. Now, we've always had one big mistake in this group. It's this 30-year lease to the marina, which is not in the best interest of this citizens of this island. And we're not asking, I don't think he's asking for 30 years. In 30 years at the marina, well, we all going to be dead anyway, and they still have the lease. Anyway, thank you very much. I support Morgan Creek.
Any others, please? Jay.
Jay Lee, 2901 Hartnett Boulevard. I go along with what Harold was saying. He already left. You know, as a community goes, and I wrote a letter to all of y'all. Sandy, I don't know if you got it because it came back as not being deliverable. Sorry. But, you know, we have an opportunity here and a location, a venue that any city this size would just give it up for. I mean, what we've done, or what Jay's done, number one, I support the extension. The renegotiations, I don't know the terms of the lease, but, you know, it's something that's always to be negotiated. But the opportunities that Morgan Creek gives for weddings, for funerals, for fundraisers. Last night there was a small fundraiser, Locks of Love. Not very well attended, but this guy with long as Louise's hair and a beard gave money to have it shaved off. The money went to a great cause. You know, I've heard opportunities for other restaurants coming in, Ruth Chris's or whatever. That kind of corporate structure is not going to lend itself for what the community is. By the credo of the city buying the property, this is for the community. This restaurant is almost dedicated, went over backwards to provide music. When the noise ordinance came, it quieted it down. It needed this opportunity. I mean, it's just there's so many positive things. You know, if you know a 30-year lease, that's not realistic. 15-year lease for somebody to get around it, but leases are negotiable. I think taking what he's done and the crew has done, go along with Harold's statement, work with it. Save the money, save the time, work with what you've got. It is working. You know, rough the edges, fix that, go with that. That's all I got to say. Thank you for your time. Y'all.
Thank you, Jim.
Glad we survived the storm.
Anybody else, please? Dan, Bob.
I'm Bob Wilder. I've lived here on the island for 15 years, and I've worked at Morgan Creek for 10 years. First, I'd like to thank Jimmy, council members, the residents that have supported us for all this time, especially lately. But I'd just like to share some things that I see that you might not see if you're not there as much as I am. But I see kids that come in for their first job that doesn't involve a lawnmower or babysitting. They have to fill out an application. They never have a pen. Life lesson number one. Bring 2 pens, because one of them's going to stop working. You know, I've had parents thank me for that one. But they go on, they come in and they have no social skills, they're shy, they're lazy, and you watch a transformation over the summer when they come out with confidence, a work ethic, and hopefully as a parent and grandparent, an understanding for how hard you have to work to provide everything that they've had, but nothing. I think a lot of us can understand that. But it's a sense of pride when you look at these kids that come away from that. They go on to achieve scholastically, professionally, and sometimes they just come back and work for us. And that's okay. The other thing I see are longtime employees that will drive 30-plus miles to come to the end of Isle of Palms to work. There's not a stretch of road for 30 miles from this point on that you will not pass 24 restaurants. These people can work anywhere, but they choose to work in Morgan Creek because it's a good place to work. And the last thing I see are these folks from all over the state of South Carolina, all over the country, all over the world that come to Morgan Creek year after year. Some of it's tradition, family tradition. Somebody proposed to their wife there. Whatever it is, they come back year after year. And I had a woman approach me one night, waiting tables, busy, and she pulls me aside and she said, "You won $20 for me tonight. I had a bet with my mother-in-law as we were getting in the car to come here." She said, "We vacation here every year, and we always come to Morgan Creek. But my mother-in-law said, getting in the car tonight, she said, I bet that old guy has found something better to do. He's not going to be there." And the lady said, "Yes, he will be, because he seems to enjoy what he does." And she said, "You've waited on us several times, and we've been other times when you're not our waiter, but you're there." So she won her 20 bucks. And the reason I'm there is I enjoy working there. I'm 55. I feel like I got maybe 10 good years left in me. But I'd like to just keep doing what I do. So 15 years would be reasonable, because that'll give me 5 just to kind of hang around and rest, you know? But anyway, we just want the consideration of being able to negotiate a fair lease, and the alternative is Hooters. And I'm telling you, when you open it up to bid, that's not out of the question. So keep that in mind. Thank you for your time. Thank you again, Jimmy and council. Just give us consideration.
Bob, thank you very much. Anyone else like to speak, please? Carla.
How can I swallow that?
Oh, you taught me all that.
Okay, good evening. This is Jay Clark.
Jay Clark from Morgan Creek Grill, and Carla Pope.
Carla Pope from Morgan Creek Grill. First of all, as I did last time, I appreciate Mr. Streetman's comments, but those calculations are not representative of what we would like to have in a lease. And I follow that with everything is negotiable. Just give us a chance. One more time, I would like to say no other tenants at the marina had to be subjected to an RFP to extend or amend their leases. Yes, to get the leases, there were RFPs, but not to extend them or amend them. And that's all we are asking for, is to have that same criteria applied to us. We have been responsible, income-producing tenant for the city. And even Debbie Suggs sent me some figures that I had requested, and she could corroborate that, you know, we are producing nearly 50% of the revenues of all the marina to the city, and we're only a sixth of the footprint. So I think we're worthy. We have been totally willing to discuss and negotiate the terms of our proposed lease, given a proper forum with the Real Property Committee in the city. Again, everything is negotiable. I've been asked, why did you start a petition? I love petitions. Don't you love petitions? It's our second one. I just feel so satisfied. What Jay and I heard and understood from the council was you wanted to satisfy the will of the people. This was a way to reach out to all our residents and our patrons and express their desire to keep Morgan Creek Grill. As of yesterday afternoon, the combined petition total was in excess of 1,700 signatures, and that's just in a little over a week. Over 200 were from IOP residents, and responses continue to climb. I think that's a respectable number of the residents, given the size of the island. If you choose to put our lease out for requests for proposals, you must understand that time is of the essence. Our business and the livelihoods of all the people who work for us are going to continue to remain uncertain. That's all I have. Thank you. Mr. Clark?
And I just want to thank all of the folks for supporting Morgan Creek Grill and the council for paying attention to us. We've been to multiple meetings over the years, and we want to continue to stay in Morgan Creek Grill. We have a lot of plans that have been put on hold because of the now short term remaining on the lease, and I think we can really continue to develop it. From day one, we've paid, one of the number one motivations has been to make it a local spot for the residents of Isle of Palms, and I think that's shown. We've had lots of benefits and so forth and so on, and again, at this point, time is of the essence for us to get a decision from the council, because we have physical issues down there that need to be addressed immediately. Everything's on record. We've been to a few hundred meetings at least, so we'll share any information we can with any citizens or the council, and thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Very much. Jim Rice.
Jim Rye, 3904 Cameron Boulevard. I won't bore you with the same comments that I commented on Ways and Means. They'll be part of the record, so I won't bore you with that again tonight. But I kind of have a different perspective of the situation down there because I served on the Real Property Advisory Committee for 3 years. And that's my phone going off. I'm not sure what it is, but it's not that important. But Brian did go through the RFP process through the years, and my name was brought up at one of the meetings because I actually put in a bid against Brian. So it hasn't been that long ago. Ryan will probably remember that the store was bid, the docks were bid, and it's a process, and it's a process by law. I think if you look at case law, we're obligated to put it out there. And I'm a firm believer that we could have a win-win situation, fulfill the requirements of the law to do an RFP, and have Morgan Creek have a fair shot at it and then win the bid for it. So I think we've got a lot going on, and I agree that we've had some losers down there, and we've got a winner down there right now, and I think that we can work together and fulfill the rules and requirements by law and open it up for an RFP and you know, let them bid on it. And I don't think that you should fear an RFP. I think an RFP is something that everybody plays by the same rules. You're looking at apples for apples, and everybody has a fair shot at it. You know, you shouldn't fear an RFP. If you're confident that you're the best and you put your best foot forward, should be nothing to fear about an RFP. Some people remember Malibu East, the Palms Restaurant, and other things before Hugo. Some of those names don't mean anything to anybody, but to many of us it was a way of life before Hugo. So I think working together, I think we can solve our problems and move forward with this. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, once? Twice? Thank y'all for your comments. Reports from standing committees, Ways and Means.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ways and Means Committee met 5 o'clock a week ago today, whatever that was, the 18th. And first item, first off, I'm going to talk about the financial statements briefly. Revenues in the general fund, or all of our general fund are up 10%. And all the funds, they're across the board up. I mean, it's 10% of what we should have for the year. At this point in the year, the percentage should be 16.67, but there's revenues that come in at different times of the year. That's a timing difference. Same thing with expenditures. Expenditures year to date are 11% of the budget, and that should be 16.67%. Cash balance at 8/31/2017 was $22,652,000. 8/31/2018 is $17,103,000. Let's see, we're doing really good with our revenues. They're up over 100%, most of them. The ones that we have any to report, which are 5, with 129%. And general fund expenditures are right on target at 15% of where they should be for the year. We go over to municipal accommodations fee collections, and this year is for July. That's what we have at this time is $199,724. And if you look at the bottom, increase from fiscal year 18 is 43%. That's a big number. So I talked to Debbie about it today, and she determined it was like a timing difference because you look at 17, the number was high, 161, 16, 150, 162, 158, and 15, and so on. But fiscal year 18, it was 139,501. We just have one entity reports. It's just a timing difference. They double paid 1 month, so there's nothing really unusual about that. We explained that. The state accommodations tax, tax, the September quarter's not over yet. We'll receive that in October. Going on to, we got a first payment on a Charleston County accommodation tax pass-through, and that's quite a bit higher than last year, this time, and it's 381,000 versus 327,750. That was last month. Hospitality tax collections were an increase for the first 2 months of 9% over last year. So that's tracking along really well. And also, the beach preservation fee is it's the same as the state. I mean, a municipal accommodations fee, because those are both at 1%. And so the numbers going back to 16 are exactly the same. I'm not going to go through the worksheets on projects at this time. Just going to go straight to, we need to be talking about, as soon as the summer's over, about parking revenue and how it relates to or reconciles to last year, and if we want to make any changes there, and or if you're looking at strictly from cash, it's down, but if you're looking for activity, which I like to look at, is up over the previous year, which means we're keeping more and more cars out of the neighborhoods, is what I'm hoping is happening. But we'll be talking about that like probably in November. On to items that were on the agenda. We approved tax rate for 2018 millage. Tax rate and the millage rate will not change. It will remain the same. So it's not your overall tax bill, it's just the portion that this body has control over. We don't know what's going to happen next year, but no tax increase this year. Number 2 is consideration of rejecting the Morgan Creek Grill proposed lease extension and considering of RFP for lease of Marina Restaurant. Is there a motion? No, that's your call to me, excuse me.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Mayor, just a point of order. Do we need a motion of the approval of the 2018 millage rate?
Yeah, we do.
Okay,
Thank you
I'd like to
very
go ahead and
much.
make a motion to approve the 2018 millage rate with no tax increase.
Thanks for catching that.
can I get a second down there?
Second's right here.
Any comments from anyone?
No increase, we like that.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan.
Yes, sir.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? No.
Okay, consideration of rejecting the Morgan Creek Grill proposed lease extension. And the other one was consideration RFP. I think it needs to be broken down into 2 separate motions. So do I hear a motion for rejecting the Morgan Creek Grill proposed lease extension?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay, please.
So this was brought originally to the Real Property Committee, and I think there's some things that the public may or may not be aware of that I think are worth commenting. This lease is up in July of 2020. So the intention was to get a head start, be able to go through this, determine what process we would use to decide whether or not we're granting a lease extension or not. The lease as proposed was in fact 15 years plus 3 years with the option to extend it to 33 years. And candidly, it went before the Ways and Means Committee with a 9-0 vote that those terms are not acceptable. So this particular vote is on that particular lease, not whether or not there is ever going to be a lease extension for Morgan Creek Grill. To the mayor's point of separating the two, at the Ways and Means Committee, all we were able to do is discuss what was put before us, and that was resoundingly at 9-0 not accepted. I'll use this opportunity to make the couple of points as chairman of Real Property. You know, these are tough decisions when they're your friends, your neighbors in small communities like this, right? So none of us take this lightly, and none of us are trying to be dismissive of the value that Jay and crew have created at Morgan Creek Grill. I wanted to use the opportunity as well, because I'm not on social media anymore, but I've had so much shown to me that's incorrect. $135,000 a year is correct for rent, but they are bringing in roughly $285,000 a year in total revenues when you take all the taxes into account, right? So it's not as simple as just the rent rate and just the other. I think the difficulty that we all have sitting up here is we don't know the fair market value. Right? We don't have a process for determining fair market value. When I personally hear things like we're a really high percentage of the revenue at the marina. I'm the guy that ran for council that was horrified by that other lease that I don't think is anything representative of what the city ever should have accepted for that. So percentages are funny things. We have an opportunity now, and it could mean continuing to work just with Morgan Creek Grill, or it could be putting an RFP out, which is not binding. It's our opportunity to understand the value of the property. It doesn't preclude us working with Morgan Creek Grill in a going forward manner. So hopefully y'all will, trust that the council's trying to do the right thing, trying to do what the citizens asked us to do when they voted us into these positions. Thank you.
Any other comments? I'd like to add just a quick comment. They've been great tenants down there. They've worked very hard to work with us when it came to the sound and everything else. But I do think that this last election was a mandate for us to reconsider how we do business as a city. And it's not saying that we're saying no to them in general. We're saying no to the lease as it was proposed. So I'm just going to let it go and stop right there. Anything? Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, and I'm not sure at what point this is the right time to ask, but before we consider the RFP, the next portion of this,
Yes,
I would like to hear from our city attorney in terms of the State Procurement Act and the recent, or 2011 Attorney General opinions on long-term leases and putting out for bid. I don't know if we do that after we go into that discussion, or we need it before we go into the discussion.
I'm going to look at the attorney and say, I need help on that one.
Well, as far as your question goes, are you just asking me in the general sense of how the state procurement code is interpreted by the Attorney General opinion?
Yes.
Okay. I'm happy to answer that question now, or when you
Now,
want to move on.
I think that'd be great.
So there is an Attorney General opinion that was released in, I think, January 2011.
Can I ask that you come to the microphone?
Yeah.
You need to practice.
Julie is used to microphones.
She is.
I'm in trouble now.
Wrong outfit.
Okay. So, the Attorney General issued an opinion in 2011 in response to Surfside Beach. They had a similar situation where they had a commercial lease. They purchased commercial property from a private owner and were entering into the term of several open leases of tenants that were in that space at the time they purchased it. And the question was, at that point, Myrtle Beach or Surfside had no local ordinances that addressed the issue of commercial leases and whether or not they had to, by state law, use the procurement method. So the Attorney General, and this is really all we have because state law does not specifically address commercial leases in real property in the body of the procurement code. So the Attorney General read the purpose of the procurement code broadly and interpreted it broadly for the sense of creating fairness and integrity in the procurement process in general. And to, I think one of the specific things they said here was to guard against favoritism and to create a public policy that favors competitive bidding. So with that in mind, the Attorney General ruled in this opinion, and bear in mind it's just an opinion, it's not law, that Surfside Beach was required to use the procurement method to enter into a new lease with these tenants and go out through the bidding process. So that is currently what we have to rely on in essence. And since then, I think this was discussed maybe several years ago with some members of this council. You actually changed your own procurement code here at the Isle of Palms to give you guys the discretion to exercise the procurement process in this particular instance.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hearing no more questions? All those in favor of rejecting the Morgan Creek Grill proposed lease extension, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The ayes have it. The next motion, consideration of a proposed RFP lease for the Marina Restaurant. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion. Okay.
Well, I'm hoping that by starting this process this early on, in the 2 years still available for Morgan Creek, that we can go ahead and have this expeditiously so that there's no break in time. In fact, if in fact we give the lease through the RFP process to Morgan Creek, there will not be a downtime at the restaurant. That's the reason for doing it as expeditiously as we can right now.
Councilman Moore, did I see your hand go up?
Yeah, it was, just to make the comment that this is not just about Morgan Creek Grill when we talk about setting some precedents here for the way that we interact with the public at large and with other businesses. That, when we talk about transparency, this RFP process really fosters that ideal. And so, in a way of doing business in the most transparent way possible, this is the best opportunity for us to take.
Anyone else?
Just one other brief comment. The difference between RFP and bid, we are doing request for proposal. It is a non-binding request for proposal as a guideline for this council to understand the value of the properties that the city and the residents own. So I think that's a key distinction. I think everyone should understand that. It doesn't mean we're not getting a Hooters. I'm saying. I said that the wrong way. It almost sounds like we're getting a Hooters.
Thinking about the young people that I was talking about, you really want your kids wearing their shorts and
But again, I think the process is fair. I think it helps us establish fair market value and gives us an opportunity to recognize that we do have a restaurant down there creating value for the island.
Any more comments? Yes, sir.
First, I appreciate, and I think all of council does, citizens' comments, whether you're for or against the previous motion and/or issuing an RFP. But I think it should be very clear to everybody. This is not a vote against Morgan Creek Grill. It's not a vote against the staff at Morgan Creek Grill. It's not a vote against ownership at Morgan Creek Grill. It's not a vote against their shrimp and grits. It really doesn't matter that much with regards to the Attorney General's opinion. This is really a matter of good government. And periodically, we've got to consider these leases and rebid them. So there will be this RFP process. I think it's important to note to everybody that the motion was for a marina restaurant. If this passes, therefore, it's the intent of this council that there will be a restaurant there in the future. And that's very important. And we've all heard rumors to the contrary. So somebody can't come in and put in a hotel or a Ferris wheel. The RFP will specify a restaurant, of which we wish Morgan Creek Grill the best of luck. Incumbents historically have every opportunity to succeed. And then council will make a decision based upon the information we receive. Finally, I'd say, and it was alluded to by John, that this really sends a message out to other tenants that it is appropriate periodically after a long period of time that these bids go out for rebid. But it's a good government decision, I believe, and it is not an indictment against the current tenant. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Okay, hearing nothing else, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Ayes have it, I know.
There you go.
Oh, I'm sorry, we're missing it. Number 3, award of a sole source contract in the amount of $118,000 to Coastal Science and Engineering for post-project monitoring services. This is our re-nourishment project down at Wild Dunes. The recommendation is being made to award a contract to CSE as activities required by permitting agencies associated with the 2018 beach renourishment project. post-project surveys and sediment sampling of the borough area, compact monitoring, annual reports documenting the beach volumes, changes, and renourishment. CSE has done a lot of work down there, engineered, monitored the construction of the 2018 beach renourishment project. They prepared, submitted permit applications. This would be a continuation of that work. The activities awarded through this contract are post-project monitoring and surveying, which is required by the city by the permitting agencies. So, hearing that, we have a motion for them for up to $118,000.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just since we just had a discussion around procurement policy, and the first thing we're talking about is sole source, this bid was split. There was a portion of this that is absolutely appended to the ongoing work. So it came in originally to Real Property Committee as a total, Desiree, I don't remember the total, Frank.
It was in the neighborhood of $300,000 for all the activities.
So-
What you all would be approving is just
Correct.
associated.
So the portion that we felt compelled to award that was appended to the ongoing project, that's what this is. The rest of it is going out to bid.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
And just to add one additional layer of clarity there, there's a time sensitivity to this amount. And if we were to send it out to bid, there's a strong likelihood, almost inevitability, that we would miss that timing and be in violation of some of the regulations that we have to follow with this repair work. So it's really important and necessary that we take this sole source approach.
Great comments. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Having said that, and Coastal Sciences has been a preferred vendor for the city and has done good work, we do need to be sensitive in the future, and where there is an opportunity and timing is such that we can go out for an RFP and test the market, we need to continue to focus on those good government policies.
Anyone else? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? 8-0. Approval of up to $11,000 for the 2018 Employee Appreciation Event.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. This is appreciation for our employees. Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
The only thing that we requested of staff is that they really go for real appreciation and have good food and have, recognition prizes or whatever you want to call them that are not just a piece of paper that says you've been with us for 5 years. So we have given the staff the okay to spend some money, whereas usually we're saying don't spend, don't spend, don't spend. This is the time where we wanted to give them up to the $11,000 since it was in the budget to really do a very nice job for our employees.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, if I point of order real quick, I mean, this is still part of our standing reports from standing committees, and I'm not sure if the chair of the Ways and Means has yielded his time for this, or if you were just going to...
Well, you kind of stopped right there, so I just picked up.
You got it. I just wanted, just for the record.
Well, yeah, it's fine, but it's,
Okay.
but I especially would like to talk about the next item.
You can talk a lot better about that than I can.
This states authorization to hire McKay Kitty and Associates to audit the financial records of the marina tenants in an amount not to exceed $50,000. Now, Marie's been quite busy, and she hadn't had a chance to get the minutes out for that meeting, but that's not what my motion was. It wasn't to audit, and it's really important. It's just, okay, for everybody to sleep, there's a calendar that's talking. I'll be through in 5 minutes. But I don't want it to be the audit. Just it says something I don't want it to say, and it's CPA. We don't want it to say. And Debbie and I talked about this. What it is the motion is to approve up to $50,000 to hire McKay, Kitty and Associates to perform selected procedures Whether that be up to and including a review, or up to and including an audit, or neither one of those. We want to do some testing of the financial statements, the revenues and the cost of goods sold above the line, if you will. And it's not locked into an audit. We do not want an audit. We do not want to audit accumulated depreciation, electric and water bill. None of that is inside the scope. Debbie and I are going to be meeting when the auditors come next week, when they get started on the fiscal year-end audit. We're going to talk about this too, about what we think would be adequate. There's no sense to audit or examine 100% of the transactions. We just do statistical analysis and pick a sample. So if y'all can help me out here, it'll be fine. I would like to, the motion that we had in Ways and Means, is it possible for that to be carried over for this vote? And does everybody remember or have an idea about what we talked about?
I think you gave us a good description.
Okay? So it's not an audit. No, it's not even a review. It's just approval.
We said it, Ways and Means.
Right. It's selected procedures. So that's the motion.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. Well, we just discussed it. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Your motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. Number 6, approval of additional $1,507.92 for the 5 in-car camera system for patrol vehicles. This had a little problem with sales tax. It was approved in August for $25,585.69. The budget's $30,000, so it's just going over a little bit.
So moved.
So we just need a motion
Second.
to approve that. Okay. Discussion? It's still under our budget, though, total.
Correct.
Yeah.
No, yep.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? 8-0. Thank you, sir. Therein lies my report. Thank you, sir. Public safety.
Public Safety Committee met at 10 a.m. Wednesday, September 5th, with council members Val Ward and myself, as well as our interim city administrator, fire and police chiefs, our city attorney and city clerk, and Jim Mercer from the Mercer Group was also in attendance as a guest. Citizens' comments, we heard from Judy Gogol and Bob Miller from the Isle of Palms Coyote Coalition. They brought up for conversation concerns about sightings, coyote pups, multiplication over the winter, food waste attracting coyotes, including food waste at restaurants, picnics, and construction sites. We also heard from Jim Rye expressing his support for making the beach more handicapped accessible. We discussed our plans for an in-depth discussion of parking and traffic issues that we are planning for our October meeting as a committee. If the Stantec analysis is available of public parking spots, we will be looking at that and the related impact of changes that we approved earlier this year. As long as that's available, is that going to be available?
Hopefully it will be available before the next public safety meeting.
And otherwise, I believe we'll be focusing at that meeting on what options and requirements are for expanding paid parking beyond Front Beach, is what we discussed. Coyote management, interim police chief Usry gave us an update on that. Police had heard reports that a boy and a dog may have been caught in traps set at the path of the marshy area of the golf course, but police had trouble verifying those reports. Interim Chief Usry has been talking to another trapper that we may use in addition to our current trapper to see if we could increase our coyote capture rate. One coyote was hit by a police vehicle and was put down. We discussed additional public education, including working with rental agencies to warn people not to inadvertently provide food sources for coyotes through trash. We looked at parking pass ordinance changes, and the committee unanimously voted in favor of a red light version of ordinance changes needed to modify visitor parking passes, which has already been backed by the committee and the full council. First reading of those ordinance changes will be addressed later in our agenda tonight. As a reminder, these ordinance revision changes for visitor parking passes will change visitor parking passes so they are now annual, multi-use, not daily, one-use passes. The pass will no longer include an expiration date or tag number, but will include a number listed that will be linked to the address to which it was assigned. And each household will be allowed 2 free visitor pass booklets a year under the ordinance changes. We also received red line versions of ordinance changes related to dog permitting. And while there was no recommendation from our committee at that last meeting, there was serious discussion about offering amendments before second reading vote in October that could include the following. Instead of requiring all dogs on the island to have city registration, which was initially approved as part of our 5-4 vote at our last council meeting, we discussed the possibility of only requiring dogs off leash at the dog park and the beach to have city registration. We also discussed the possibility of switching from a metal tag to a collar system for city registrations to compel registration compliance in those off-leash settings. And we discussed making city registration for dogs that are not going to be in an off-leash setting voluntary for both residents and non-residents, as long as a dog has proof of rabies inoculation. And I'll note that for many years now, residents have been the only ones required to have city registration. Let's see. We also discussed the need to, at a minimum, clear up confusion in the wording of our ordinances and clearly require proof of rabies inoculation in our local code to allow related enforcement and ticketing by our animal control officer. And I indicated to the committee, and will reiterate now, that I believe an ordinance requiring every dog that comes on the island to register is an overreach, and that affected our discussion. And so we can discuss that at second reading, I believe, and maybe discussing it in committee, or is that, or
You
is
all
there?
could discuss it when it comes
We have a
before
reading later,
first reading tonight.
We can discuss.
Yes.
Okay. We also looked at handicap beach access and discussed the possibility of allowing golf carts on the beach for handicapped persons, and looked at how Sullivan's Island allows for this in their code by issuing a placard from the island to a small number of people who apply for it and setting specific restrictions on how that's allowed. However, the committee opted to delay any related decisions on this topic until staff could do more research. It is important to note for the public that our fire and police departments will drive handicapped persons to and from the beach upon request. We received an update on a crosswalk request by residents for 5th Avenue and Palm Boulevard. South Carolina Department of Transportation says before a crosswalk could be considered there, the city would need to install a sidewalk in that area. Council may want to consider that project next year when it makes requests for county transportation projects. Otherwise, fire and police reports are available in the meeting packet and also available online. Our next public safety committee will be, I don't have that written down, I'm sorry. I think it's October 1st. My apologies.
October 1st at 5 p.m.
There you go.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Public Works.
I'm going to stand in because the chair is not here, but let me pull up the information real quick. There we go. That easy. The regular meeting of the Public Works Committee was held at 9 a.m. Thursday, September 6th. All committee members were present. the director gave his departmental report for July and August and stated that July and August garbage was down in comparison to the same months in 2017, but yard debris had significantly increased in those months as well. He was also contacted by the interim chief of police to transfer the responsibility of keeping the dog waste containers filled from Public Works and now be transferred over to Animal Control Officer, which makes total sense. And with the assistance of the BSOs. So that's going to free up some time for our Public Works, because it took approximately 4 hours per week for the Public Works personnel to go through and change those. In August, the city pumped water from the streets in 46th, 50th, 52nd, 51st avenues, and that's an ongoing problem whenever it rains. We had an update on Phase 2 drainage. The contractor at the time of the meeting was completing the work at 46th Avenue. They're continuing to work up the street. Delayed because of rain, hurricane, stuff like that. So this job keeps getting pushed back. We had some updates on the underground storage tanks. They are in. We have canopies. At the time they were being pumped, the water is being pumped out, and it will be up for use here soon. We had updated drainage issues at 32nd Avenue. The county is trying to be really proactive with this and working with the residents in that area to reinforce an embankment along about 150 foot of the drainage easement. And they were in the process of having another meeting with the property owners in that area, and the city was going to attend those as well. We're trying to look at ways to update the trash cans on the beach. Either try to find a way to have them lidded, and if possible. We've done some research. North Myrtle Beach uses one. Thing is those cans run around $300 a piece. And obviously with 57 cans along our beach, it'd be relatively expensive, and we don't have anything like that in the budget. So we're going to go ahead and contact the vendor and see if we can actually, get a few of them to borrow to see if they actually work with our machine and stuff, and if they'll work throughout the season. So we're in the process of doing that. We had discussion again with drainage along Forest Trail. The chair is going to meet with the director and walk that area and see what we can do, and that'll be updated with our next meeting, as well as the ditches between Hartnett and Wills Way. We also had some discussion about the need for a new water fountain at our new public beach restrooms. So basically, where right now it's you just have a traditional water fountain. It's not really user-friendly for water bottles and containers. So we're going to try to get one that's similar to the one we have out front here. And that will be, although it's not budgeted, we're still looking into the funding for that as well. And hopefully we can have something up there. That was it. And then if anybody has any questions, I'll try and field them. But our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, October 4th at 9.
Great job filling in. Any questions?
I just have one quick clarification. The city has 57 beach garbage cans just along Front Beach.
Just on, yes.
Yes, that's on.
Yes.
Not along the whole island.
No, not along the line, just along Front Beach. Right.
So noted. Okay, Recreation did not have a meeting, but do we have any comments from Recreation?
The next meeting is October 9th at 9.
Okay, very quick. You just won the award on that one.
There you go, perfect.
Personnel.
I'm not going to win the award on this one, I'm sorry. Okay. First, I'd like to say that my report was developed from the audio, since at the time the minutes weren't available, but then Marie got the minutes. So if my report and the minutes don't exactly jive, it's because it's coming from the audio, and it's my interpretation of the audio. The Personnel Committee met on September 6th with all members present. Minutes of July 5th were unanimously approved as read. We then had no citizen comments or old business and proceeded to the new business, which was to introduce Jim Mercer of the Mercer Group, who is our contracted search firm, and he presented to the committee the steps that would be taken going forward. and at what junctures approvals needed to be gained. I'm not going to go into every step that he gave us. They're on the audio, they're in the minutes, but he was very specific about when we would get the first narratives for the brochures, then we are to provide pictures, and when we get those approvals. So it goes on and on and on and on. But what we did find going through this whole thing was that we need to be patient, because if you look at the timing of all of his different steps, we will not be making any interviews until January of 2019. And that is with nothing, no more storms, no more delays. So we really have to be patient in this process. But we do have a process. We do have the procedure. We have a very reputable firm that is going to take us through that process. And I feel very confident that as we go through it, we will find some excellent candidates, as well as our in-house candidates that we have. Confidentiality assurances for applicants was paramount for Mr. Mercer. In other words, in order to get viable candidates, they want to know that their materials will be held in confidentiality. And we had a little bit of a problem in that one member of our committee was not comfortable with having just one point person. So we're trying to see how we can be confidential but transparent, since all of the committee members will be receiving this confidential information at the same time. We're now looking at attorney opinions as to how we can do that and still have a transparent process. So it'll be a little tricky, but we'll figure it out. New business B, the employee handbook revisions were given to us and all the changes were discussed. And a unanimous motion was made to present that handbook to you this evening with all those changes. But it has to go to the labor law attorney first. So she has not provided that back to us, so that at our next meeting we will see that finalized copy from the attorney, and then we will present it to you at the next meeting. New business C was a calendar for boards and commission candidate interviews. Every year at this time, we receive applications for our boards and commissions. They are appointments that are made. The Personnel Committee will interview all the new applicants. And we do this at this point in time in the fall, even if there are no openings on those committees. So then we have a pool of these interviews, so that if an applicant is available and there's an opening, then we don't have to go through that interview process. So those meetings have been set for October 2nd and October 3rd, both beginning at 8 a.m. in the morning. So we'll have October 2nd at 8 a.m. running to about 10, and then October 3rd at 8 a.m. also. And it looks like we have 4 candidates that we're going to be interviewing. We're not I'm not sure if Marie's been able to. Three of the 4? Okay, that's good. 3 of the 4. We then went to new business D, which is appointment of the attorney and assistant attorney. And this question was brought up by Councilmember Rice, because right now we have our assistant attorney acting as our attorney, but we have no assistant attorney. And that was giving her some pause, as she put it. So we had a discussion of, well, exactly how have we been making these appointments? And our interim city administrator was able to tell us that with Nick Satilli, he recommended Sterling. And then when Sterling left, she recommended Julia. So we have not gone out for an RFP on either our attorney or our assistant attorney in over 10 years. So again, looking at best procedures, the Personnel Committee decided that not that we are not satisfied with what Julia is doing. We're very satisfied with what she's doing. But at this time, we need to go out for an RFP for both the attorney and the assistant attorney. Now, that is on our agenda. Do we need to vote on that now, or do you want to come back to it?
I would say yes, we need to put that as a motion.
Okay. Therefore, I move to issue a request for proposal for a city attorney and assistant city attorney.
Second.
I heard a second. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? 8-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much. New business E was a discussion of the evaluation tool that we use. And in light of the fact that we are in a current search for our city administrator, we decided to delay this topic until after the city administrator has been hired and can be part of the process of creating this new tool. So I hate to tell you guys, but we got to use the one we got in December. I know I'm seeing all these eeks kind of, but we are going to review it and we're going to make changes as soon as we get our city administrator in place. But for this December, we will use the old tool. Okay, new business F, Employee Appreciation Day. We've already discussed it. We're all going to come. We're all going to have a good time. So I don't think I need to say any much on that. New business G, discussion of developing a policy for merit increases for long-term employees who are at the top of their salary ranges. We have one this year, but we're looking at several going forward whose salary range is right at the top. So they may get a very good evaluation and they may be eligible for a merit increase, but they can't get it because it will push them over that salary range. So they don't get a merit increase. And so we've looked at how other municipalities handle this, and some of them, not most of them, but some of them use a one-time lump sum payment. And you can't use the word bonus because bonus is illegal. You can't use public funds for bonuses. So we have tasked the staff to find out exactly how do these other municipalities do it. They're giving lump sum payments at the end of the year. Does not affect the salary. The salary doesn't increase into the next year, but it's a lump sum merit reward or whatever they call it. But in the past, our attorneys have said that you cannot give bonuses. So we're at the point where we're just trying to find out how do other municipalities do it, because we'd like to be in a position of giving our employees who have qualified for a merit increase that merit increase. With no miscellaneous business, our next meeting is October 4th at 5 p.m. There are no vacancies in staff other than the police chief. The sweepstakes winners are General Government, Robert Foss, Police Department, Robert Walter Boss, Fire Department, Chris Fassos, and Public Works, Robert Graham. So ends my report.
Great report. Thank you very much. Real property.
Okay, Real Property Committee met at 4 p.m. Wednesday, September 5th. Councilmember Ferenc, Ward, and myself were present, as were the interim administrator and city clerk. Minutes of the previous meetings were approved. In comments of marina tenants, Michael Fem of Tidal Wave took the opportunity to remind everyone about the IOP Residents Appreciation Day that was planned and held on September 8th, with 100% of the proceeds going to the MUSC Children's Hospital very successfully. Thank you. Brian Berrigan spoke and announced that all of the marina tenants will be holding a marina festival on Sunday, November 4th from noon until 7 p.m. in partnership with the IOP Exchange Club, and all residents are encouraged to attend. The money raised from the raffle items will go to a worthy cause. Mr. Berrigan also recalled that in May or June, the committee asked that he compile a list of needed projects at the marina, and the list was included in the meeting packet. And additionally, he informed the committee that the list was prioritized, and also with an indication of which parties are responsible for those items. In old business was consideration of the Morgan Creek Grill lease renewal and extension. For those that are interested, either the audio or the notes are available, but I don't feel compelled, unless everyone would love for me to go through this again. We'll just leave it that it's in the record. Additionally, hang on, I had many pages on that one. We had update on licensed businesses operating out of the IOP Marina with no lease with the city manager. The interim administrator stated that she did not have an update on that subject at this time. Item C was the update regarding 1100 Palm and the right-of-way on Pavilion Drive. We're also waiting on additional information on that at this time also. Update on marina operations. This was largely centered around a conversation that relates to an audit or a review of certain information that we still like to have regarding the operation of the marina. A lot of debate on that one that I'm not going to drag people through here either. But the intention that Councilman Ward was explaining is there are certain items that the Real Property Committee feels are relevant to the residents, usage of the marina, resident, non-resident launches. Frankly, in order for us to make good, sound fiscal decisions around how much money we need to invest on a going forward basis as opposed to prioritizing other projects. In new business, we had on the agenda discussion of a long-term vision for the marina, but frankly, we spent so much time on the other subjects that we didn't get to it. It will be deferred to a later meeting. The other item was already discussed in Ways and Means, which was the sole source award to CSE for the permit required monitoring. And with that, that concludes the report on real property. And I will be just like council member to my right. I don't have the date listed here.
October 3rd.
And I don't spin through this electronic version fast enough.
October 3rd, 4 p.m.
Question?
I was just going to confirm, October
Questions?
3rd at 4 p.m.
October 3rd at 4 p.m. Yes.
Sometimes we use the marina generically as opposed to the marina store or the gas docks, etc. And that can be confusing to some of our citizens. When you discussed and we passed earlier the financial review for the marina tenants, we are including all of them. It's not just the marina store or other facility.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So ends your report.
So ends it.
Thank you very much. Moving on, reports from city officers, boards, commissions, accommodations, tax advisory, no meeting. Board of Zoning Appeals, the minutes are attached. Planning Commission, been very busy, minutes are attached. Reports from special or joint committees, none. Petitions received, referred, or disposed of, none. Bills in possession. We're going to try something new tonight, and from here on. We used to do first reading by title only. Tonight, we're going to change. First reading, ordinance 2018-16. Ordinance to require all dogs, residents, and non-residents to have a written permit from the city and tag at the cost of $5 for residents, $10 for non-residents, to serve as proof of rabies inoculation and to adopt language in the ordinance to require proof of current rabies inoculation. What we're doing different tonight is a motion to approve first reading with discussion. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion. I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion. Anyone?
Well, I'll kick it off. So we had a 5-4 vote on this before, and I was in the majority. But I have concerns, as I expressed earlier, that what we passed was, in the initial vote, was an overreach, and that it applies to all dogs that come on the island. And I would much prefer, and we didn't actually then get into discussion of enforcement or anything like that. My suggestions would be that we do 3 things that I mentioned that we discussed at committee. One would be to change it so that we're only requiring off-leash dogs to register with the city, whether they're resident or non-resident. So when they're in that situation at the dog park or on the beach and they're off leash, those are the times when I think we need that extra layer of accountability attached to the privilege of letting dogs off leash, which is something that many other communities aren't able to offer and don't offer. We're, I think, somewhat unique in that we offer that. And in addition to making a change along those lines, to make it meaningful by switching from a metal tag to a colored collar that would compel compliance. Otherwise, I think it's whatever changes we make to require any kind of registration is somewhat hollow, because most people will not pay attention to it. So I would encourage you all to consider that. The collar system's been successful over on Sullivan's Island, where they charge $25 for residents, I believe, and $35 for non-residents. We're looking at something much more reasonable in terms of registration of $5 and $10, and even at that cost would cover the cost of a collar and then some, so that we would ultimately wind up still having some revenue that we would generate. Not that we're looking at this as a moneymaker, but that would give us money that we can put forward toward our animal control officer, our Bark Park facility, and also things like poop bags that we pay for. So in that respect, I think it makes sense. But and then the other thing would be to make it voluntary. If you're not in an off-leash situation, not requiring residents, as we do now, to register, but only requiring that residents and non-residents who keep their dogs on leash or are not going to be in an off-leash setting, that they just have current rabies inoculation proof. So that makes it fair for residents and non-residents, would be treated the same way.
The motion is about a tag.
Well, does any of that have anything to do with this motion?
No. So
Okay.
the motion is about tags for dogs. Residents being $5, non-residents being $10.
Well, this would be, I'm suggesting all of these changes as part of the dog ordinance.
Amendments.
Do you want to try to make an amendment to
I
the
don't
motion?
believe that I can make that amendment. Sure. I could make pieces of it.
You can make the amendment. What I would suggest is to separate. I think what I'm hearing is 3 different ideas to be considered by the committee. But I think that for the record and for the audience here, it's important to understand what it is in front of you for first reading as presented, which was the result of a recommendation by City Council at the last meeting.
Thank you.
What you all have before you for first reading is changes to the code to allow all residents and non-residents, all dogs, to require them to get a written permit from the city at a cost of $5 for residents and $10 for non-residents, and also include language in the code to require proof of inoculation, so that in the city code, so that the animal control officer has the ability to enforce. Right now, it is state law, but it is not in the city code. Therefore, only sworn officers are able to enforce that. That is what you all have in front of you.
That's the motion. And we have a first and a second.
So, Mr.
Yes,
Mayor,
ma'am.
if we do not pass this ordinance, then we do not have the stipulation in the ordinance that dogs must be inoculated.
Correct.
We would have to bring up another ordinance.
Correct. If this
Okay.
ordinance, as presented, does not pass, it does not get a favorable vote for first reading, it doesn't, it's basically
Gone.
Gone. You all can make a motion to direct public safety to look at this issue again and maybe present something to you all that represents what you all are discussing, if there are any changes that you would like to be made. But correct, if this doesn't go forward, then
We don't have
go
the
before
inoculation
second
ordinance.
reading.
But Desiree, only at the city level, correct? There's still state law governing.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. I'm sorry. The recommendation to include that language in the city code is just to allow enforcement of the animal control officer.
Right.
So it just gives them more teeth, like the mayor said, to enforce that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Yes, sir.
This ordinance, to me, is interesting because I think it's trying to address things that it's not fully addressing. The first is that right now we have an ordinance that seems punitive to residents, and that residents are required to pay and non-residents are not. So there's one stage where we're saying we want equity for dog owners across the board. That could be a $0 fee or some sort of fee. The other issue we're addressing is what I would consider irresponsible dog owners. The data that I've seen does not really show that rabies is a major concern for our safety or the safety of our pets. Where we have had issues with residents and dogs is from irresponsible owners who have poorly trained animals or aggressive animals that they let loose who bite or injure other dogs or folks, and then they take off. This ordinance to me doesn't really resolve that because those people usually take off, and there's not typically time for a law enforcement official to really come and see, oh, did they have their rabies tag or not? And so you end up in the same position regardless of whether or not we have this ordinance in place. And so my concern with the way that it's written is, and to Councilmember Smith's point, I don't feel like this is an enforceable ordinance that actually achieves the mission that we're trying to go after in terms of making people safer. And until we can, put an ordinance in place that forces people to be responsible, which is by and large impossible, this is going to be an ongoing issue. And I'm not saying that it's hopeless and that there aren't things we can do to improve it. I'm just concerned that the ordinance as it's written isn't really addressing the issues that we've seen raised by our citizens.
Thank you, sir. Any other? Yes, sir.
I like the 3 recommendations, the new recommendations that came out of committee. I particularly like the volunteer aspect of it. And I would recommend that we vote this second reading down and turn it back to staff and come back with something similar to what you described.
That would be the cleanest way
Right.
to do this if there's consensus among council to do that.
Well, and I'll clarify that we actually didn't vote on, we discussed those, but we did not vote to recommend those changes in committee.
I still like them.
Okay.
Okay, so as it's written and presented, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Well, or we can withdraw those motion and
Or they
second,
can
send it
withdraw
back, and send it back to committee.
I will withdraw the motion.
And a second?
Withdraw the second.
Okay, going back to committee. Just so you know, I like this idea of discussion with the first readings. I think it's a good opportunity for us to get it out there as opposed to delaying a whole month. This time it's going back. Okay, first reading, ordinance 2018-17 to change visitor parking passes to annual multi-use passes by eliminating the expiration and tag number and linking the number of the pass booklet to the address to which it is assigned, and to amend the parking ordinance to allow 2 free visitor pass booklets per household per year.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Nays? Ayes have it. Okay, miscellaneous business. Just so y'all know, on September 18th, the mayors got together in North Charleston, and we had created a Low Country Mayors Disaster Relief Fund. We were fortunate to have that we were not affected, but the Low Country Mayors Disaster Relief Fund was proven necessary and integral to many of our neighbors' relief and recovery. We are asking our councils, our governments, to each chip in $5,000. All the money will go 100% to victims, preferably South Carolina, if not North Carolina. We don't have it in our budget. This is something brand new. But it's going to go to the coastalcommunityfoundation.org. You can go online and donate money yourself. But I would like to see us do it, but would anybody like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion.
I'll second.
That we approve this consideration of a gift of $5,000 to the Low Country Mayor's Disaster Relief Fund, and to make sure it's in compliance with our municipal laws in regards to gifts to qualified charities, and that the $5,000 come out of the
Mayor's Fund.
It couldn't come out of the disaster preparedness.
Disaster
fund.
preparedness.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Well, I'll just say that when I was personally looking for a place to donate, I came across that information, and I think it is a very smart approach to handling those funds.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Ayes have it. 8-0. Executive session not needed. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.